It is the Malady of Ghostly Cities, as written by Nathan Ballingrud. The first known case of the malady of ghostly cities was discovered in 1976 by the, by the Argentinian Navy during efforts to establish a base on Cook Island, the southernmost of the South Sandwich Islands, just off the coast of Antarctica. The victim was one Ivar Jorgensen, a member of the Norwegian explorer Roald Amundsen 1910 to 1912 expedition to the South Pole. According to Amundsen's diaries, Jorgensen abandoned the party under cover of night, stealing a sled and 4 dogs to aid his flight. Amundsen makes little mention of any change in Jorgensen's demeanor or appearance before this incredible event, noting only that he seemed to be suffering from a sort of delirium. The poor fool won't last 2 days on his own. In fact, he lasted considerably more than 2 days. He managed to travel several hundred miles over Antarctica's brutal country, even crossing the narrow scope of the Weddell Sea, until he beached himself on Cook Island, where he succumbed to the disease. His remains abided there in frozen silence for 64 years. Since then, 3 other cases have been discovered, making possible a rudimentary definition of the disease's manifestations, if not its causes. Simply put, it's a malady that transforms the victim, seemingly overnight, into a city populated by phantoms. The identity of the victim, along with a record of dreams, fears, and geographies of the body, are contained in a small series of bound volumes, located in a hidden cellar, buffered against intrusion like a brain in a skull. In each case, the victim was apparently a traveler far from home, and indeed far from any substantial civilization. Otherwise, characteristics vary dramatically. The Jorgensen city resembled, naturally enough, a turn-of-the-century Norwegian fishing village. It was populated by a host of spectral figures, solid in appearance, but breaking into little whirlpools of cloud and mist if one attempted to touch them, coalescing again moments later, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. They interacted freely with one another, but did not seem to notice in any fashion the Argentinian soldiers who stood in their midst and demanded at a great volume to know how long they had been there and what it was they thought they were doing. Jorgensen City is one of only 2 cases in which the secret library has been discovered. The small series of books that composes these libraries gives a detailed account of the victim's life. This is not an account, however, of the mundane aspects of that life, although it seems those can be gleaned from the comprehensive footnotes that supplement the texts. They are instead a precise record of the imagination. As such, they are filled with the exploits and terrors of the victim's dreams, secret thoughts and potential resolutions of their lives. Esoteric knowledge is also contained here, often at a level of scholarship far exceeding that which the victim could have reasonably attained during his lifetime. For example, Jorgensen's library is reputed to have contained a moving map of the night sky, visible from Cook Island. one for every day of the year since his birth in 1882. The stars crawled across the pages as they would the natural sky. Clouds floated past. Rain and snow rose from the pages of stormy days in a fine mist. The other known city is Colleen Norton, a discontented college student from Columbia University in New York City, who disappeared from her classes and the lives of her family and friends without a word of warning. She traveled to North Africa, taking up with a band of Bedouin wanderers, integrating herself to them with her uncanny ability to pick up languages and her extensive knowledge of their culture. Evidently, she already carried the disease. However, and within weeks, the mysterious new city was half buried by the roaming dunes of the Sahara Desert. It is built entirely of glass. Its silent occupants can be glimpsed only through the reflections they cast. The books here were discovered in an underground chamber, cleverly disguised by a series of angled mirrors. The books revealed a tempestuous inner life of longings and ambitions. Among them were a series of novels that she might have written, depicting the histories of dreams cities, fashioned by a secret society of architects who had severed their ties with the material concerns and restrictions of human life, as well as a 2-volume catalog of the libraries of heaven and hell that included half a dozen locations on Earth where some of these books can be acquired. The other 2 recently discovered cities are believed to be the results of the disease, although as of this writing, their libraries have yet to be discovered. One is located in the Ghost Forest in central Brazil. This city, fog-garlanded, rain-haunted, is constructed from the bones of exotic birds in the area, and is the only city that seems to have a discernible relationship with its immediate environment. Its fragile construction is the principal reason for the continued mystery surrounding the location of the library. The hollow bones of the birds are easily crushed even by the lightest explorer. For now, we must stand in frustration at its borders, gazing into its complicated arrangements and listening to the whispered, melodic conversations of its hidden inhabitants, which emerge from the city in glowing gossamer loops and coils, illuminating the wet green foliage and our own astonished faces. The other city exists in a labyrinth of caves and tunnels, an abandoned mine shaft in the southern Appalachian Mountains of West Virginia. The city is a dark, sprawling arrangement of stunted buildings, suffused with the perpetual sound of grinding machinery. The inhabitants of this awful place have been stripped of all their skin. The glistening tangles of muscle and tendon flex and surge in absolute darkness, staggering around on broken limbs, hustling to and fro in an excited caper. They are prone to sudden, spectacular acts of violence, rendering their fellow citizens into shivering slabs of meat. The muted sound of angry exertions, grunts of rage and effort, follow these monsters around like dogs on chains. There is much disagreement regarding the length of time this disease has been with us. Some maintain that it is a product of the Industrial Revolution, depicting in bold strokes the subjugation of the soul to the mechanicized muscle of unbounded greed and arrogance. Others suppose it's a traveler's disease, in which the victim's profound desire for home manifests itself in this unearthly architecture, although the fantastic nature of most of the cities seem to undermine this theory. Others post that the malady of ghostly cities has afflicted humankind for thousands of years, that we have in fact made homes of corpses of its victims, and that what we perceive as ghosts are the world's true citizens, the ones left here by the memory of the dead. Until recently, there was no cure was believed to exist. In early 1978, however, the case of Ivar Jorgensen was finally laid to rest by Jack Oleander, an infamous book thief who chartered a boat to take him to the Cook Island so that he could steal the city's secret library and sell the books on the black market. He succeeded in spiriting the books out of the city, but when the hired pilot failed to rendezvous with him in the agreed-upon time, he was forced to burn the books in order to survive the Antarctic night. According to the statement he gave, the Argentinian authorities, who had incidentally arrested Oleander's boat captain and were on the way to arrest him when he consigned the library to flame. As he turned to watch the cascade of glowing cinders carry away by the snowy wind, his gaze fell upon the city, and he fell to his knees in astonishment. Two great wings arose from the humble skyline, beating mightily, and the city was carried away into the deep of night. Oleander escaped from the authorities shortly after giving this statement. It is believed he headed to Libya to pillage the Norton city. The Jorgensen incident has since given rise to the Society of Urban Transcendence, whose members have declared their intentions to seek out and destroy the secret libraries of all the cities of the earth, so that the iron and concrete-clad ghosts that have turned our world into a forest of tombs might finally be free and rise like God's breath into the stars which beckon them. That is the Malady of Ghostly Cities, as written by Nathan Ballingrud. The next one is The Physics Professor and the Latte, as written by Deidre Witt Lovegren. It wasn't like Dr. Stevens to spend $4.38 for coffee. Not coffee, latte. A latte was essentially fancy coffee with a thin layer of foamed milk. Either way, $4.38 was an egregious amount of money to spend on a beverage for a young professor with crushing student loans. A young professor who wasn't sure about his lackadaisical students' understandings of the beauty of physics. A young professor who would have been just as happy sipping the dregs from the burnt coffee pot in the faculty lounge. He wasn't sure why he agreed to meet the one colleague who had befriended him since joining the faculty. She taught in the university's humanities department. As he waited, he noted the other patrons' coffee cups festooned with decorative swirls in the foam. Not foam, crema. Is that what justified this expense? He thought about the formulas for oscillations and the mechanical waves that made the coffee swirls possible. This passed the time while he checked his watch and waited. Perhaps you should order his coffee now. According to the laws of thermodynamics, the coffee would cool too quickly before his colleague's arrival. Of course, this was relative to how much energy would be given off by the styrofoam cup compared to the time it would take the coffee to lose its energy. He conjured some equations, quickly solving for X. He looked at his watch again. From the sidewalk, he watched cars start and stop at random intervals, mentally drawing up a calculus proof of centripetal acceleration. "Sorry, I'm late," she replied more loudly. "Oh, I didn't see you." He smiled sheepishly. She startled him. "This coffee shop is fun. You'll like it." She beamed. She liked everything. Like most humanities professors, the humanities building brimmed with effervescent idealists, all on the cusp of discovering new revelations about the human condition. Its lobbies were cozy with overstuffed couches and festive throw pillows. There were contemplating chairs to invite the minds to ruminate. As for the physics building, the 1970s gray slab had the worst lighting on campus, tactily alerting future engineering students that they'd sold their souls to STEM, a lifetime of endless physics and calculus calculations. Dr. Stevens' new friend opened the door to the coffee shop for both of them. He peered at the array of options posted on the wall above the counter. "See the specials on the chalkboard? Every month, the coffee shop picks a theme. Since October is cuffing season..." "Cuffing season?" Dr. Stevens inquired. "October is the official start of cuffing season, where there's a chill in the air. You haven't noticed students pairing off, sometimes right in the hallway? It's the time of year to find a mate to cozy up with for the winter months." She laughed, a sound as melodious as wind chimes. But he knew the sound of her laugh was simply vibrations in the air traveling in longitudinal waves. Yet still. "Oh, cuffing season, I see," Dr. Stevens replied. "So there are 8 special lattes," she continued, "all based on 8 types of love, according to the Greeks." "I didn't think I'd need a humanities professor to order a cup of coffee," Dr. Stevens said seriously, but she laughed, touching his arm. "There's autumnal agape with cinnamon and vanilla. Agape is unconditional love." "Like a mother's love?" "More like Jesus," she replied. "That might be a bridge too far. How about the Magic Mania with Irish cream?" "That sounds good." "Magic Mania means obsessive love. It'll get you a restraining order." "I'll pass on that one," he decided. They both nodded in mutual agreement. "Let's see, how about a pint of pragma with toffee and buttered rum?" "It sounds like old people's smell," he remarked, knowing that quantum physics purported that the smell depended on the shape of the molecules, not the age. "Makes sense that you'd feel that way, as pragma is a love that has matured over time. It's like watching your grandparents hold hands, assuming they're still married," she added quickly. "They're dead, so let's pass on the pragma." "Oh, I'm so sorry. Let's look at the next one." She squinted, her nose scrunched up in an adorable way, a way that Dr. Stevens stared at for a bit too long. "Steaming storage with hazelnut? Fabulous philia with raspberry? Both have heavy friendship connotations." Friendship is all right. He wavered a bit. Ah, peppermint fitulia. The love of self. Perfect for you, she beamed. Do I come across as arrogant? He was stung. No, she laughed at her wind chime laugh. Fitulia is self-care, self-compassion. It's a healthy love. I've had years of self-care, Dr. Stevens thought. Years alone in the lab with Michelson and Morley's luminarious ether experiments, and Minkowski's space-time, and the Lorentz transformation. Nowhere in Einstein's velocity addition did anyone mention anything about cuffing season. You could try elderberry Eros, she whispered slyly. Eros. Eros is unchecked passion, perfect for the lost weekend in Vegas. It's the type of love that burns hot and bright, yet burns out fast. The Greeks were actually afraid of Eros, afraid of losing control. Eros is basically combustion, Dr. Stevens surmised. A chemical reaction between substances. It would generate a lot of heat and light in the form of a flame. I'm not sure what elderberry tastes like, so I'm not going to risk my $4.38, he decided. She thought he was joking again and laughed, returning her hand to his arm. It felt nice. Last one, red licorice ludus. I love red licorice, he exclaimed, pulling out his wallet. What exactly is ludus? Can I get arrested for it? Ludus is the Greeks' playful form of love. It's a crush, the starting point for all lovers, she explained. That's the perfect cup for cuffing season, he said, calculating how cozy it would be to cuddle with her. And with that, Dr. Stevens cheerfully paid $8.78 for 2 red licorice ludus lattes, and even tossed the extra $1.24 into the tip jar on his way out. That was the lovely little short story, The Physics Professor and the Latte, as written by Deidre Witt Lovegren. This one is called The Dewey Decimal System, as written by Deidre Witt Lovegren. It's a rare thing to find fulfillment in maintaining order. Carving it out of chaos, keeping the barbarians outside the gates. But it's been my life's pursuit. Case in point, I returned from my lunch break to find all hell is broken loose in the library. How much anarchy has been unleashed in the quarter hour it takes me to eat my egg salad sandwich is staggering. But it's all part of my Sisyphean struggle to thwart the laws of entropy. I escort 2 homeless women in need of a shower to the community bathrooms, but not before ensuring I have a Narcan on my person. I manually shut down the computers to the puzzlement of 2 older gentlemen who have circumvented the library's porn filters. I clean up the fast food trash carelessly thrown into the book depository drive-through window. I frown at the 2 teenagers making out in the study carrels, like they've invented the French kiss. Au fait? A patron incorrectly reads my name badge aloud. He has an Eastern European accent. Au fait? Out of sheer irritation, I ignore him. Oh, Ify. He makes another attempt, interrupting my reverie. I continue in my vain attempt to declutter the library's long reading tables. Order from chaos, indeed. I'd long grown immune to thoughtless patrons scattering books hither and yon, as if their mothers would be round to tidy up after them. However, leaving discarded items out is far better than lazily shoving them back into the wrong shelves. As if Melville Dewey himself didn't devise a nearly perfect decimal system to house our compendium of knowledge. A Ofo. It's Alfie. I turn, correcting his pronunciation. I give him my thin, indulgent library smile. It's an old Gaelic name. You may pronounce it Aoife. He flushes red. I stand, hands on hip, taking him in. He is tall, my height. Burly, thrice my width. But I am as thin as a garden rake. He grins, grizzled and gray with piercing hazel eyes, looking both apologetic and uncomfortable. Aoife, the man repeats. That's a graceful name. My mother thought so. Aoife, he says again. What of all those extra vowels? Historically, I believe they're there in case the Brits want to expropriate them along with everything else in Ireland. The man bitterly laughs. You sound like my grandfather, kvetching about the pogroms. Well, throughout history, there's usually an usurper around, ready to usurp. I reply flippantly. I believe any book on the shelves in the mid-900s will prove our mutual point. Military history, ancient civilizations throughout the 21st century. If I can help you locate something specific, please let me know. Otherwise, you'll excuse me. I do need something. Oh? I arch an eyebrow. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is Oscar Raskind, and I'm not here to check out any books. Aoife, I'm here to return them. I turn and point, 2 different directions like an airline stewardess. There are return boxes inside the library near both exits. If you need further assistance with returning the library's resources, please see the circulation desk. I don't know that librarian. He hesitates, looking over at Frances. Frances exudes a sense of profound disappointment on cue. She looks over her bifocals at the few library patrons as if they are felons. Frances is very helpful. I don't want to ask her my question. What question do you need to ask, Oscar? My curiosity is piqued. He looks at the books in his hands. These books are long overdue. Maybe a year, probably longer. I look at the way he is holding them, tightly gripped. I feel the need to rescue the books. So I reach out. He reluctantly hands them over. The library has an amnesty program, I reassure him. Don't worry about the fees, so let me see what we have here, I say quietly. Strunk and White's The Element of Style, The Little Brown Handbook of Grammar, and Roget's 21st Century Thesaurus. I will pay the fines, he says. I just wanted to return them for my wife. Your wife? She wanted to write her memoirs before. Oscar shrugs his shoulders. I understand. I say because I do. I've seen eyes like his before. Patrons with those type of eyes usually want books on the shelves around the 155s. Developmental and differential psychology, traumatic experiences, bereavement. It is clear Oscar has suffered. Love makes us vulnerable, I suppose. It is also true that I haven't loved like others have, but I do understand loss. There are things one chooses to forego when he or she wants a life of order. Amidst the quiet tidiness, sometimes another person's random or unpredictable behavior would be welcomed. I put my hand on his arm. Your wife must have been quite intelligent. She chose some very good resources to help her write well. She wrote her stories in longhand when she wasn't in pain. I typed at the pages for her, made her happy. I nod. In the end, she just wanted to eat fruit and chocolate. Oh, she would eat chocolate by the kilogram. We have that in common, I say. Death by chocolate seems an appropriate end. My wife was ill for such a long time, he adds. It was almost a relief when... We look at each other. He's shocked at what he's revealed, putting one of his hands to his mouth to take back the words. But I understand. When we don't have someone to talk with, we end up disclosing the deepest secrets of our hearts to perfect strangers. I cried at the arm of a cashier at the dry cleaners the day my father died. I never set foot back in that place again. A week later, I still think of Oscar. I am overjoyed when I spy him coming to the library. Ophi, he says, smiling, showing all his teeth. He's carrying a pretty green and red gift bag. Oscar, I reply, coming down from a step stool. The books can wait to be reshelved. I wanted to thank you for helping me with my overdue books. Oh, it's no trouble at all, I find myself stuttering. Your tax dollars at work. I brought you this. Unceremoniously, he hands me a gift. I take it, pulling out a heart-shaped box, more appropriate for Valentine's Day than Christmas. Chocolate-covered strawberries. I hope you like them. Oh, I'm sure I will. I love them, I confess. Frances looks over her glasses at us, calculating how close we are standing together, diplomatically looking away. Ophi, do you think we could get dinner sometime? Sometime? When is sometime? Tonight. We could have dinner sometime tonight. I am off at 6, I whisper conspiratorially, putting my hand on his arm. I will come by at 5:30 and wait for you in the periodical section. Perfect, I say because it is. He gives me a little wave as he leaves. I stand there and look after him, long after he's left. Who is that? Frances asks, but I ignore her. At 63 years old, I am holding a box of chocolate-covered strawberries. I said, who is that? Frances repeats. That is Oscar Reskind, I say, grinning like a schoolgirl. Frances grunts, returning to stamp overdue notices. As for me, I walk to the stacks in the heart of nonfiction to find the books by Melville Dewey and has systematically organized for me. Carefully arranged in the mid-650s is what I'm looking for. Management of personal and family life, social skills, care of face, skin, hair, nails, and dating. That is the cute little story, The Dewey Decimal System. It's also written by Adidra Witt Lovegren.